Hello, my name is John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from the capital of Northern British Columbia, Prince George. Beautiful, beautiful day in Prince George. Spring is around the corner, hopefully, and I have an exciting guest today. Her name is Amanda Alexandra. And welcome to the show, Amanda.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Amanda has been in Prince George for quite a while. Where are you from? The north, or where were you from originally?
In the 70s, I guess in 1978, my family immigrated from England.
Okay.
Clearly
50
I was young, so there's no...
More than 50 years ago.
Yeah. So we landed in Vancouver.
Okay.
And for an opportunity for our family.
Okay.
And I grew up in Vancouver, and then came to Prince George after I had done some education, some post-secondary education, on a 2-year plan to get some experience and leave. And I've been here ever since. I love the community. I love what it offers, and it's home to me.
So how old were you when you came to Prince George?
I was 23.
And you already got your education then down south?
Yeah, at that point I had done a degree in psychology and a degree in social work. And
okay,
so
from UBC or?
One from UBC and one from UVic.
Okay.
And then I rounded it out many years later with my Master's of Social Work up at UNBC, because it's an incredible institution.
Yeah, and it's UNBC, just for the benefit of our international and national, for that matter, guest, UNBC is the University of Northern British Columbia. Amazing university.
Oh.
Rated many, many times already as the most popular and highest rated small university in Canada, period. You know, so it's and you got your master's in
social work.
Social work. So, and then you spent, once you became a professional in the field, you started your work with which organization?
I started work with the Elizabeth Fry Society, and after a brief stint doing some solvent abuse prevention and education on and off reserve. But I spent 18 years with the Elizabeth Fry Society, and I quickly learned that there was a beauty in working with people one-on-one, but there was also a magic to community development and really understanding what community needs are and how we can go about supporting those needs and providing services, changing policy and practice so that people have an opportunity at better, healthier outcomes, and that's our responsibility as community developers. And so that's been tremendously exciting. During my time I had with Elizabeth Fry, had a great learning and experience in supporting transition houses for women and children who were fleeing domestic violence in our community here, and in Burns Lake, counseling programs, family resource center, young parent programs with attached childcare. It was an amazing privilege to be able to support such, strong survivors in their journeys.
Yeah, and then so that was not with the Y yet at that point. And how long were you with the initial organization?
Elizabeth Fry was with for 18 years. Yeah,
that's a long time.
It's a long time. It was a lot of connection and passion and support.
Does it still exist, the Elizabeth Fry?
It does.
Where is it based then? Because I don't know all that much about it.
The main office is on 5th Avenue.
Okay.
And they have, programs and services throughout Prince George, and also in the community of Burns Lake as well, too.
In Burns Lake. Also in other communities, or is it uniquely?
There is Elizabeth Fry societies in other communities, absolutely, but they're all individually run and locally run with local boards of directors. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you did that for 18 years, and then an opportunity presented itself to do something different.
Yeah, well, I've always had a passion for physical activity. It's been my balance in my world. And when I moved to Prince George, I joined our YMCA, and I was a volunteer there, and I ran running groups and became very connected to the YMCA community, and really appreciated the sense of community and inclusion that the YMCA offers. It's unique to the fitness world, and so I happened to read a news article in the Citizen about the CEO leaving the Y, and I thought that would be just an amazing job,
right?
Because the 3 areas of work that the YMCA leads is health, fitness, and aquatics, childcare, and our community programs.
Right.
And so collectively, I now had the opportunity to lead early intervention and prevention and high-end intervention programs. And so you can work at all aspects of that community development work about servicing community.
Right.
And so it's a beautiful opportunity to be able to respond to community needs in such a wide variety of ways.
So just want to talk a little bit more about your involvement, and you were also involved in the Iron Man. I don't know, why do you call it Iron Man, not Iron Woman?
I know, right?
Yeah.
Iron person.
So, yeah, and that takes some doing, right? Because I was looking at it that if you're 4 kilometers swim, 180 kilometers on a bike, 42.2 kilometer run, and you did that together with your husband Craig.
I did, yeah. And our children, our girls, were 6 years old and 9 years old at the time.
So tell me, what are their names, your children?
Alicia and Isabel.
How old are they?
They are now 19 and 16.
Amazing.
I
age,
know, right? How that happened?
Yeah, just like that. I have 2 daughters as well, and they are in their 40s and late 40s, and I look back and say, what happened?
Right?
Yeah, I still remember going up the elevator in the Prince George Hospital when my oldest one was born. Can you believe it? So it feels like yesterday in a way. So. And Craig was quite involved as well in athletics.
Oh yeah, he's the sporty one. I'm the disciplined one. So together we make a good combination.
A perfect match.
So yeah, and honestly, I as an adult had to learn how to swim with my head below water. Craig taught me how to blow bubbles, and so that I could do that. And I remember my parents coming from Vancouver to watch my first triathlon, and they thought I would be the last one out.
Well, you must have been in pretty good shape, because this is not something you say last week and say, okay, let's do that Monday.
Oh no, it was
It takes a lot and a lot of training.
Yeah, I mean, I had done 13 marathons prior, 12 marathons prior. And 5 half Ironmans leading up, like for many years.
Yeah.
And so it was a great opportunity. We had to map everything out, be super organized about meals and laundry, and we would put our kids and our girls into activities, and then sprint off and do a 2-hour run. And we had great friends, as the community of Prince George is, who would take them for a few hours so we could go out for a long bike ride. And
now, something I'm somewhat partial to is that somehow you got a Dutch connection here.
I do.
So where does that come into the picture?
Yeah, so my mom was Dutch and my dad British, and they met on a 1-week holiday. And my dad proposed to my mom at the end of that holiday.
After 1 week, he
after
said, I want to
1
marry
week,
you?
and she said no.
Yeah, no, well, I would have said no too.
And he went and visited her in Holland and tried again to propose, and she said no. And he said, next time you ask me. And then I think it was 4 months, like in total, from when they met. She went and spent a month with his family in Britain, and they came back engaged. And then she made the significant, change in her life to move to England to be with my dad. And yeah, but the Dutch roots were very strong, and unlike you, she was a young person in World War II, and so when I read your book,
Right.
I was just so taken about the similarities that you had experienced in the stories that she shared with me about being a young person living through a war.
Where was she born, in which area of Holland, you know?
Haarlem.
Haarlem, yeah, just North Holland. Yeah, so all in that same area. It was very, very tough go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I had, in the last 10 years, I've been speaking about it more, writing about it. Obviously, I was fortunate enough to get talking about UNBC. An honorary doctorates of laws from UNBC in 2019, which allowed me to do a presentation and talk a little bit about PTSD for one, DN a child, all stuff that you're familiar with because it's all part of your life and what you're doing today. And then the other part, somewhat classic to me, is that I was not very successful academically. As you already know from my book, I failed grade 3 and grade 7. I failed the grade 3 times, and then they said, "Well, what do we do with this guy? Send him to mental school?" Or fortunately, they made a choice to send me to get a trade. I became a furniture maker, and and then obviously we were liberated by the Canadians, April the 12th, 1945, made such an immense impression on me that one of my dreams was to go to Canada, so always kind of stayed with me. It was not if, but when, so then just kind of coming back to your unique role is that, I was engaged with and involved with the Y because I was training there, and the gym with my good friend Aaron Simpson, for quite a number of years actually, and then obviously we've been supporting a number of years some of the activities that the Y started in Prince George, and so we've always been very much of a supporter corporately and personally of the Y. I always kind of felt, that respectfully, that most people don't fully understand the Y as to what is it and what what is it all about, and I think it's so unfortunate, and hopefully we help changing that somewhat today by talking about a lot of the things that, for one, the Y is a totally voluntary organization, that it has been in business for how long?
Over 100 years. Locally, over 50 years, but
the concept of the Y has been around for over 136 years, and we'll talk about that a little bit more because and that is the communities in the region in central British Columbia, and some changes have taken place. We'll talk about that a bit as well a little bit later, but I want to talk a bit more about the Y as it existed for the 50 years and from the time that I know it as an amazing gem. Has extreme an amount of activities in that gym, deal with people that it's doable in terms from a cost perspective for people to get training, even the ones that for challenges they have on their own get assistance in still being able to access the training, which is unique. But that's only a small or a big part of the gem in a much bigger picture. If I look at the why, the other thing that it is doing, and you and me being in this studio here in the center of Prince George, right next to the Civic Center, we could look out on the street, and then you pointed out to me a building that is there that we can see right from my balcony, and it's called Foundry. I know that the building is there. I never connected to the name Foundry. I thought it was whatever, right? But it's part of the why. Tell me what part and what are they doing there?
So Foundry is a youth integrated health center. So it was one of 5 pilot sites across our province. So the YMCA was chosen across all of Northern BC, our Northern Health region, to be the first one in our region as a pilot. It is, so we are the lead organization, and we are funded by Providence Healthcare to do this work. There's now 17 foundries across our province, and the concept of Foundry is that it's one place that is everyone integrated, so beyond co-located, but actually that information is shared collectively among the service providers. You can drop in and get services for youth ages 12 to 24, can get substance use support, mental health support.
What age groups are you talking about?
12 to 24.
Why 12 to 24?
Well, because we know that you don't magically at 19, have everything figured out.
Yeah.
And we also know that there are some young people that are having youth issues as early as 12. And so it's really about trying to service the far-reaching, screening people in, supporting youth as opposed to screening people out. So you can walk in, you can get primary health care, so access to birth control, access to gender-affirming care. We're the only location in Northern BC for young people that have gender-affirming care. You can have access to employment services. Parents can get support for when they also need help in trying to support their young person. And so a youth can walk in and get care. So oftentimes in many of our services they're overloaded, and you walk in, you tell your story, you get an intake, and then you don't get to see someone for months. And all of these services at Foundry are located under one roof, and you can walk in and get service. So it's been life-changing.
How long has that been in place then?
We just celebrated our 5th anniversary at Foundry.
So it's relatively new then, Amanda, right?
It is,
yeah. And I think amazing, and I know, that when I grew up in Holland, and just at the time that, I was somewhat unique because I was a laborer already at the age of 14, but normally what would happen is that the time that you trying to go through the transition from being a young boy to a young man, and then you're trying to figure out, where do I go from here? I was then drafted into the Air Force in my particular cases, but most young people, were then selected at 17 to one day turn 18. They then want 24 months into either the Marine, the Army, or the Air Force. And I found that kind of helping to sort things out, and obviously they don't do that anymore for probably the right reasons, but what it did is create structure and getting used to structure, and because all of a sudden at the late age that you think you know it all, and they put you in the same room with 40 other guys that think they know it all too. It's somewhat interesting to say the least, and so that was a good period. So I can see that age group 12 to 24 would be a good one, and especially these days more so than when I grew up, for all the reasons that we know so well, and sometimes you will look at it and say, what in particular has made all those changes? And to a certain extent, it is like social media although there are good things about it, there is probably not so good things about it as well.
Absolutely.
And the other one is being exposed to all the issues and all the problems in the world, especially if you look at it today. Look at the Ukraine, look at Turkey, look at Syria, and then bless us for being Canadians here in Canada. But young people get exposed to a lot of things now that to say the least are troubling, and certainly in terms of finding direction as to where to go and how to get there, much more difficult than looking for something like Foundry. When you very briefly explained it to me when both of us were standing here watching it, across the street, I think, it's something again that for somebody that is as involved in the community, and I've been here for virtually 60 years. I came here 1965. I didn't know that that they were doing that, and the same as the why. I knew the why was there, but I never fully understood until I started to become a member. And then the more I found out about it, including what we are talking about today, the more I say, you need to know more. You must, the citizen from the region and the area, or for all that matter in central British Columbia and British Columbia as a whole, you must know more about the why. And, so we looked at Foundry, and then next to it there is another building that is kind of used by government, and again standing on our balcony looking out, and you kind of looking at potentially doing something there or acquiring it from the government and putting it under the umbrella of the why, again for the purposes of what?
Well, we have been providing services for over 20 years in what you're referring to as Youth Around Prince, or YAP. So it is a government building.
And that's called RAP?
YAP.
YAP.
Y-A-P. Youth Around Prince.
Y-A-P. It just happened.
It just happened that way.
Okay. So and it is for the purposes of, and how long is it? More than 20 years?
More than 20 years.
Yeah.
And so it is, we provide the drop-in center for at-risk youth. So youth are able to access showers, laundry, community kitchens, connections to resources, support, peer support, those with lived experience who can help support them in youth in their journey. And so we intentionally located Foundry beside YAP because of the youth were already familiar with Youth Around Prince, and we wanted to bridge the whole continuum of services to make that as accessible as possible for all youth.
So the age group there would be any particular framework of age? And YAP?
Similar.
12 to 24?
Similar. So there's government services that are also run within that building as well, and so each program would have their own mandate of
so
ages.
It could well be on the YAP that it also includes people that are older than that framework.
No one older than 24 for sure. No one older than 24.
And is that male and female?
All genders. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And so now that is what we just saw when we walked out to my balcony, and you just pointed at it there and there. There's much more than that under the why. Tell me about the other things that the why is involved in.
Yeah. So You explained, really well, I think, the blessing and the curse that the YMCA has, in that the Y as a gymnasium is such a strong brand. We're known for gym and swim.
Yeah.
And we have, facilities across the country. The YMCA is an international organization, and gym and swim is what we're known for.
Yeah.
And because our gymnasiums are tremendously inclusive, you'll walk into it and you'll see what some people might think is a corporate gymnasium charging fees that generate money. But as you so well mentioned, we are a charity. And typically on average, 20% of our membership is subsidized. And actually right now, coming out of the pandemic, over 25% of our membership is subsidized. So in terms of health equity, we believe strongly that everyone deserves the opportunity to have good quality health outcomes. And so no one is, we support financially seniors, young people, families to have access. We have agreements in place in the spirit of truth and reconciliation and understanding the health inequities that our Indigenous peoples have experienced with the Lheidli T'enneh and Tsay T'enneh Nation, where we provide access to our facilities as well. And so, but you walk into the facility and you never know, right? Because it's such an inclusive place that you don't say, oh, that person on the treadmill, they must be financially subsidized. No. That person is struggling with a mental health challenge.
No.
That's someone who has come from the Ukraine who is also being provided membership and access given the situation that they've been in. And it's not visible. And so the story is sometimes harder to tell, but it's there. And it's a really important one. And then beyond that, as an organization, it's only about a quarter of what the YMCA does in terms of programming. So another quarter would be the work that you've started to talk and had me share about around our community programs. But over half of what we do is childcare. And we do childcare, we support childcare, and we have a national best practice curriculum called Playing to Learn. And the intention of childcare is not just providing a safe place for children and families, so that families can work and that children can be in care, but very importantly about early learning. So it's about trying to level the playing field in terms of those really pivotal times when children are growing up, to make sure that they get the best quality early learning experience, the best opportunity to be successful in school.
And again, so critical, right? So
Absolutely.
that, when families can be there while the little ones are being taken care of, and they have peace of mind while they are enjoying the services that are being provided by the Y for their parents,
So they can work, absolutely, and be employed. And how important is that to our northern communities, right?
It's critical.
People are leaving our communities because they can't find quality, affordable childcare.
Exactly.
Industry is suffering, our health professionals as well. And so the YMCA is in 8 northern communities because of that exact reason. And then we then can, the people who want to be in our communities can stay in our communities because they can be employed, and they do those important roles as first responders, as all different kinds of contributors in industry in our communities. And childcare is an essential part of that, of being able to keep people in community and support their employment.
So that is, what else do you do in addition to all of that? Is there anything that we forgot? Or?
Oh my goodness. So we provide recreation to seniors at Simon Fraser Lodge.
Yeah.
We've been doing that for many years. We have an after-school program that is 100% philanthropically funded called Beyond the Bell. So that's run out of Glenview Elementary in the Heart, in Prince George. And the children are specifically chosen those that have academic barriers that wouldn't that also have who come from families who have economic barriers, so couldn't necessarily afford after-school programs. So Beyond the Bell provides everything you'd want for your child after the bell rings: academic support, connection to other children, nutritional support, and physical activity. And typically children who come through this program are improving their reading levels by at least a 1 grade level by the time they complete the program. So huge outcomes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, your region is the greater Prince George area, or you go beyond that?
So we service in Northern BC, Prince George, Vanderhoof, Fort St. James, going to the other side over to the Peace. Pouce Coupe is our latest community that we're providing service to.
Which community?
Pouce Coupe.
Oh, Pouce Coupe, yeah.
Yeah.
That's close to Dawson Creek?
Yep.
Yeah.
Dawson Creek, Fort St. John, Chetwynd, Tumbler Ridge.
Is that under the Y then, or under your organization?
So,
as we knew, I'm not. I'm waiting with the new organization. I'm saving that a little bit for the.
Yeah. So that was under the umbrella of what was our legacy organization of the YMCA of Northern BC. So 8 communities within the north we service and support.
And anything in between?
Well, that would take you, all the way from Fort St. James all the way over to, Tumbler Ridge. So quite an extensive, probably 8 hours worth of, from point to point. It's extensive.
I'm just wondering, Amanda, it's voluntary, so you have that membership is funding all of that?
No. So the membership pays for membership, so that supports that program. There's no profit involved in that. It funds our health fitness programs. Childcare is fee-based, but the province of British Columbia, which we have tapped into very intentionally, has started a new initiative called the $10 a day childcare plan. So whichever sites that we've been eligible for. Is that
relatively new? Or?
Relatively new, yes, in the last few years. So that means for a parent, you're spending no more than $10 a day in childcare, and the government then provides us the remaining dollars.
That could be much, much higher, right?
So think about that as a parent, you're paying no more than $200 a month. Life-changing.
Life-changing, because in some cases it will cost $100 a day.
Absolutely. And so, typically, like if one partner is working in industry, typically the other partner doesn't have the opportunity to go to work. But now that childcare is accessible and affordable,
opens that opportunity.
It opens that opportunity up for equitable access.
Yeah.
So childcare is through fees and government funding as well, and then our community programs are through a wide variety of government funding that we get. And in addition, like in Vanderhoof, we are the operator of the Vanderhoof Aquatics Center, for example, and we're funded. The difference between, we are supported by the district of Vanderhoof to run the operations of the pool.
Kind of a unique one-off that is, looking for management provided by the Y, and then using regional or local or provincial funding available to further support it, but managed really by the Y. If you look now purely, even if people are they still members of the Y then, even if they're not necessarily, I know the athletic part of the Y and being members of the gym and all of that sort of thing. I know they're doing a lot more things. They have baseball games, and they have this, and there's so much going on inside the Y. It's unbelievable. It always surprises me that that the parking lots are full and full of people. When are they gonna rebuild it or build a totally new one or add to it? Because it's such an amazing facility.
And the sense of community and inclusion, which is so important. It's always important, but never as we've known before, like coming out of the pandemic, that sense of connection. You know, it's a beautiful thing, the connection that our members feel, you know, to each other that may not necessarily have connection, but because, you know, they're enjoying a class together on a treadmill beside each other. It's the nature of the environment that we intentionally foster that is a sense of community.
So if somebody is sitting here or wherever in our region and saying that, I never fully realized all of that, what can I do to be more part of supporting the Y in the Prince George region or in the 8 communities, if you wish? Or how can somebody saying, what can I do? Do I become a member of something, or do I? How can I be more supportive of? Because what they are doing is critically important. You can see there on the Foundry and the other things that you're doing today, and newer programs that again are helping the community so immensely. You know.
Well, as a charity, we, you know, immensely benefit from, you know, people's generosity, like, you know, like yourself, who has sponsored and donated, you know, to the YMCA, and that allows us to do our financial subsidy. That allows us to run, you know, beyond the bell. That allows us to do all the really important philanthropic work that is an enabler. And so, you know, we appreciate those that can have the ability and means to be able to donate to the YMCA so that we can do our charitable work.
Is there a structured way in which that is being done, or you knock on doors, or not necessarily in that way, but I always kind of felt that, you know, that we need to know more of what you're doing, because it's so immensely important for, you know, you know, and more so today than ever.
Yeah.
You know, but even, you know, like, you know, when I first came here, you know, I couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job, and I had $25.47 actually, and wanted to build a sawmill. But for a period, I had nothing. I had no job, had no money, had nothing to eat. Stood in front of, I forget, it's right there on 3rd, 4th. There was the Salvation Army, and I stood in front of it, and I felt too ashamed to go in. But I hadn't eaten in 4 days or 5 days, and was sleeping in an old building, you know, and you know, and you know, that having so many organizations now, probably then to a certain extent already, Salvation Army is an amazing organization, but you know, that a lot of times these organizations are not known as well as they could be, even by the ones that feel they're an intricate part of our society. And how can we be even more supportive, but not only being supportive, enjoying it, like, you know, like the gym is so important. I believe that, you know, I'm going to be 83 this year, but I'm 82 and a half, and you know, but I love working out and going to the gym, and anybody that maybe cannot, gym tends to be sometimes a bit expensive, but then the Y is a perfect option in just staying fit physically and mentally.
Yeah.
It's extremely important, especially for even individuals that are growing older, and the Y athletic side is a perfect example of, you know, you have people from the 90s till the 15, if you wish, working out there. So it's just an important part, and I always kind of think that should we be putting more dollars into it? Should people be? Step one is always becoming aware. You know, and you know, this is for us for you and me an opportunity to make people a bit more aware of, what the Y really is all about. It is, and looking at the athletic side in particular, is extremely active in the community, very considerate about all people that would want to be participating and being financially able to do that, and how can we further grow and expand it. That maybe brings us to the point that your role is you're the CEO of the Y and Prince George, but recently something else happened provincially. Maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. So my previous role or previous title was CEO of the YMCA of Northern BC. And for over 6 years, I've been on a journey with two other YMCAs, the YMCA of Kamloops and the YMCA of Greater Vancouver, around what we call unification. It's like three rivers flowing into one organizationally.
How do you call it?
Three rivers flowing into one, and our new name is YMCA BC.
YMCA BC.
So collectively, we have services from the Sunshine Coast, up to Chetwynd, Dawson Creek, and the purpose for unification was to be stronger together. So we're three YMCAs that were very strong and robust organizations in our local communities. But we knew that if we came together, we would be stronger. And the reason that we would be stronger is that we would have the ability to have greater back-of-house supports. So when you talk about developing philanthropy or fundraising, supports and services around that, around specialized HR and finance, to help us do our jobs the best that we can. And ultimately, when our back of house is functioning in the best way possible, we deliver our local community programs in an even more quality way. And that's the intention, is to bring us together so we serve more local communities in the best way possible. So stronger together. So my role in the new organization is the Vice President of Northern BC. And so I'm thrilled. It's been a long journey that I've been supporting, and that our boards of directors have had, volunteered huge amounts of hours in achieving this really great outcome. And
you're staying here, though. Yeah?
I'm staying here, and we are very driven about that it isn't. It is our community. Our community is British Columbia, and we serve British Columbians, and this gives us the geographical reach to be able to meet more community needs as well, and that's really important in that journey.
So what first comes to mind in my mind is that it gives you a much stronger voice out there, and in particularly talking to politicians in terms of funding potential, and to further enhance the stability underneath your new strong foundation on a province-wide basis. It does not alienate or enhance one area more than the others, but rather with the objectives of being equal around the whole province.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
so when did that happen?
January 3rd.
So it's brand spanking
brand new, absolutely.
And it's YMCA BC. And that I would have kind of thought that was always that way already. But I never kind of thought about it in terms of having the different organizations, and so congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been quite a journey, but I'm really thrilled we've been able to activate it, and I'm really thrilled about the learning that we can collectively have. In Kamloops, for example, the Y leads transition house and programs for survivors of domestic violence. They have skills and abilities in that area that we can all learn from each other, right?
Yeah.
We have
Or complement.
Yes, exactly. We have, as we talked about the work we've been doing with youth in terms of Foundry and mental health, we have, that to learn. And so we can take these best practices and be able to support collectively and where communities identify needs. And that's often the way the conversation starts, is about a community saying, I heard you do this, and I would really appreciate if you could consider. And that's really about making communities better, richer, healthier.
And make organizations more effective and efficient in terms of finding programs that that don't need to be duplicated because they already have been tried in other locations. So the model is no more concerned at that point other than to apply to certain regions. And it gets the attention of the federal government, I'm sure, as well as the provincial. And then how do you find the interaction with, I always refer to Prince George. Some people maybe don't quite agree with it, but I call Prince George the center or the capital of Northern BC. I'm being somewhat presumptuous there on purpose, but I'm an old guy and I've been here for 60 years, so I can say what I want to say. No, and that's kind of the way I look at it. But I love Canada, I love BC, and I love the North, and I have a passion for what we have here and how fortunate we are, and so. But I always looked at the why from the time that I was there and the time that I've been involved in your fundraisers and your programs. I admire the organization for knowing that it's substantially voluntary, how the commitments are being made, and how it, in my mind, means a lot more to the community than, and again I say this respectfully, than most people are fully aware of. And I hope that this program helps us in understanding a lot of that even better. And then also to you is saying, what else ideas can you give to our guests that are watching this, from not only Northern BC, but from the other areas. We have a lot of international guests actually watching, and to tell them a little bit more about, especially the ones in Northern BC, how can they become more involved? What comes to mind first and foremost? Being informed is one. We hope that we are doing that in our program today. And then what comes to mind if you are talking to the population in the region as a whole, as what message would you like to give them, not only as the past CEO of YMCA locally, but now the VP of YMCA BC, what would be the message that you give to the potential members of the one organization that we have now, but the much larger one as it moves forward to building memberships and being more, even more supportive to communities, and how to make people understand what is being done, what can be done, what else can be done in addition to what you're doing already?
I think that over the past 10 years, the YMCA locally has been really intentional about sharing the good work that we do, and there's more work we need to do around that. But I think we've shown up as partners and as in responding to community needs that have shifted positively the perception of the YMCA as being a really important charity that does really important work that makes a difference to the lives in our community. I think moving forward, we are very passionate about doing work that we call health equity, which means that geography or income or experience of racialized or being part of the 2SLGBTQ community shouldn't be a barrier. We should be able to live as long, given those variables, equitably, and our quality of life should be just as equitable. And so we're doing that already in the programs that we've already talked about in terms of fostering good quality early learning and supporting youth with mental health. But where we want to also go is supporting furthermore intentionally, for example, chronic disease. Our healthcare system is really burdened with providing high-end treatment, and we want to, as community members, we do some of this already, but for example, we do a pulmonary and cardiac program, and so those we support those that have had cardiac issues to be able to become active again in a really healthy and safe environment. We have a hip and knee program for those that have waiting surgery or coming out of surgery. These are really important programs to people's health and wellness and being able to live longer and have higher quality lives. We are very passionate about moving this work. We are working with the UBC Okanagan around a diabetes prevention program to support those that are pre-diabetic, being able to engage in lifestyle change around diet and exercise. The outcomes of this program are hugely significant, that people can go from being pre-diabetic, actually having blood sugar markers that put them into that warning place, to actually showing no signs of diabetes through some simple strategies around diet and exercise. Simple, hard to execute for people to make those change, but with a supportive environment, these are life-changing.
No question.
Life-changing, right? And so we want to continue to do that work and more really intentionally, because no matter where you live or what your experiences have been or where you've come from or how much money you make, we should all be able to live, to the same lifespan and the same quality of life.
Obviously, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just it kind of appears from the nearly 60 years that I've been here, I think interaction with First Nations is increasingly, in particular, in the last 5-10 years, more and more. You find that as well?
I do. I think that growing up in the Lower Mainland, there is more division I found between Indigenous communities and non-Indigenous communities. It's something I really appreciate about being in the North. There's definitely much more engagement, and rightfully so. Like that's our job as non-Indigenous people, to be responsive in the spirit of truth and reconciliation. I read a stat about 30% of Indigenous children are in poverty. Like, that's unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
Right. And so what are we as allies doing to support that change, right? And so we are trying to be very intentional where we can. We have a lot to learn, and at the YMCA about how we do truth and reconciliation, but we are trying hard to do that work because it is so important. And we have to acknowledge the mistakes we've made in our past. It's why we worked with Claytley today and SAKE to develop the memorandums of understanding. So appreciating that access to health and wellness is really important, and that should be, a show of support that we can make. But it's also in terms of the policies that we have, and the sense of inclusion, and acknowledging our traditional territories, even simply in all the programs that we run. our youth around Prince Drop-In Centre, 50% of the youth that come there are Indigenous. That speaks volumes. That's disrepresentation, right? That many youth are at risk. 50% of our population in Prince George is not Indigenous. You know, what does that say? That's about inequity. And so we show up and provide that service because we want to change that opportunity or trajectory for that youth.
Yeah.
And so when we set up Foundry, we engaged with elders, we engaged with youth. One of our youth, in one of the consultation sessions, and we had an amazing architect who was involved in these consultations and just listened to the conversations and incorporated what was said into the design. And so one youth spoke about his connection to culture being life-saving for him. And so we created a cultural and spiritual room that's vented for smudging, healing. And so those are the important conversations to have so that we're learning. We have a youth advisory and an adult advisory that provides us feedback around what that's like to experience that service. So it's so important for us to be engaged and to listen and to respond and to be intentional when it comes to truth and reconciliation.
Yeah, in particular to be engaged and to listen and to have dialogue, not simply go out there and say, do it this way, but understanding and having interaction from a foundation of respect. Obviously the histories are different, and obviously they have a legacy of abuse and violence and all the other terrible things that have happened. But how do we interact in particular with the elders and have a respectful dialogue in terms of what can we do together, to change those statistics which are totally unacceptable. How do we change that? And knowing that we can't do it on our own, we cannot do it by dictating what we think it should be, but it has to become from interaction and dialogue, and then gradually move it away from where it is now. And as you know, and as we all know, the statistics are just simply not acceptable. But it is not something that you can just say, okay, it's all changed now. That's not how it works. There's too much history. There's too much that that still is being reconciled in terms of hurt and pain and so. But gradually moving in that direction, organizations like the Y again are very fundamental to those things as communities and as a province, as the interior, and I think a very, very good example of what can be, and and I salute all of those amazing volunteers in your organization.
You mentioned, we mentioned the University of Northern British Columbia earlier in our conversation, and I've had the privilege of being on the Board of Governors, appointed to the Board of Governors of UNBC.
Congrats, yeah.
And I am absolutely thrilled with the work that UNBC does, particularly around truth and reconciliation. And so they clearly are walking the talk around their commitment, their involvement in language institutes across the Indigenous communities, ensuring that their Indigenous students they have over twice I think it's 8% of the student population, which is over twice the percent of our provincial population, are Indigenous. And what a great way to actually support education and a positive education. And so I'm just have been so pleasantly pleased, not only as my own personal student experience and seeing my daughter go through, her student experience there too, but also from a governance perspective, what great work they are doing in our community and across northern communities.
No question about that, Amanda. And I remember well when I was the riding president of the period that we were fighting for a University of Northern British Columbia, and and all the people that supported it, and and it was a battle, but we because of so many people being behind it, 16,000 or 18,000 signed up, and that and then politically we were not going to be denied. We wanted a freestanding university, and that is there now, immensely successful, but we must go further than that. I believe that I've been a great believer in College of New Caledonia, another example of amazing what they are doing and have done. I think we can go even further than that in terms of jobs training, and then although I was involved in the Trades and Technology Center, has my name on it, and I'm very honored with that. But when now as we still, with all the resources that we have, the location that we have, the transportation infrastructure, we do not have a facility that will develop the skill sets, not only among the ones that that traditionally don't have the skill sets available to them unless they go to BCIT or down south, but also in terms of First Nations having, and I believe that we must develop a center of excellence that develop those skill sets that attract entrepreneurship, investment and dollars, building investment, because at the end of the day, if you as a person have a job and that you like and enjoy, and that you can provide a family for it, and be proud of have your family live here and your kids live here, and hope of having employment, is something that we must all work towards. And sometimes if you look at it, I usually say 80% of the GDP, gross domestic product of the province of British Columbia, is generated in northern British Columbia. And I'm not always so sure that the fellas down north, and for now the fellas, but the girls as well, forget about that. Here is where it generates the potential for investments and generates dollars, and a huge potential for the indigenous community, as well as getting skill sets for entrepreneurship and jobs and skill sets that they need to be part of a changing world.
Yeah, I think the more we can increase access to people's capacity to live, work, and play in the north is vital. And the university, the college, they're a piece of that puzzle, and have definitely increased our community's capacity for our children, our youth to stay in the north and to get educated in the north. But to your point, we're not done.
No.
But it is bringing the strength and resources so that people have opportunities.
I always felt that the story of the Y and what it has done and what it can do and is doing as we speak, and change the bringing the other communities together in the new YMCA BC, is a giant step in the right direction. And so it's my pleasure to have you as my guest.
Great.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you so much.